Following program is a presentation of the weekly credit report.
And I want to cut in there real quick. I just want to explain to some people that a write-off, a charge-off, a profit and loss, what that means is that they took the debt and they wrote it off in they're pretty much their P&L, a profit and loss, their taxes. They took the information, and how that works is very simple. When a collection company has a specific amount of money that's owed, a debtor, credit card company, they assume you're going to pay this debt. So what they actually do is they claim the amount of money that you are supposed to pay them onto their taxes already. So if you owe them $5,000, they're going to say that they profited $5,000, even though you haven't gotten it yet. They say that on their taxes. So when you eventually don't pay them, they go back and say, well, hold on, they didn't pay. Here's a charge off. It's almost like saying, here's a receipt. Take the amount of money that we were supposed to be, or that we said we earned, and we didn't earn that.
And now it's a loss.
It's a loss now. So then at that point, they really aren't liable, or they're not held to that money and taxes and all that. Now they sell that debt. And at that point, now it's owned by someone else. They don't own it. It's on to the next one. Don't ever talk about the original debtor again, because they don't own it anymore. Okay? At that point, these companies, collection companies, settlement companies, wholesale collections, they buy this debt for pennies on the dollar. They buy it literally for anywhere between probably 5 cents to up to, at times, probably 20 cents, depending on the situation. I'm just being very broad, but it's very cheap. They do this because they know this thing's been bought and tossed around and in the hands of probably 2 to 3, 4 different third-party collection companies, attorney firms at this point, and they're buying it on a whim. They're buying it on a prayer of, look, if we buy enough debt, it's all about numbers. We're going to go buy $1 million worth of bad debt from Macy's for $150,000. We're going to make 30% on this thing, so we're going to make at the end of the day, we're going to collect $300,000. We made $150,000 on it. That's how they look at it.
And that's one thing to know, is that wholesale companies or wholesale collection companies buy debts in bundles. It's not like they're just buying your specific debt at one time. They're buying mass amounts of delinquent bad debt. And so that's one thing to understand, is that they already know in their numbers, it is just numbers. They know that there's going to be a percentage of certain people that will pay back. They already factor in people that will not pay back. And that's what they're going to base in negotiating off. That's the reason why there are times where you can get a settlement for 5%, 10%, or it might be 50%. You never know.
Too, going into a little bit more detail, we're against the break here in a little bit. It goes quick. But they'll look at your credit report prior to even buying the debt to see if, hey, are you paying?
They do their research.
And I was just going to say, I'm like, if you're wondering where in the stage your debt is at right now, it'll say on your credit report. That's why we do the soft pull on your credit, and we go through that so we figure out exactly where in the process that debt is, and you know that because it clearly states that on your credit report.
Yeah, and the thing is too, it sounds crazy, but there's we could go into really good detail because again, we're against the break here in about another 20 seconds, but understanding that some of the information and some of the movement that you make proactively thinking it's going to help, it might hurt you, because if you start paying on a debt or two, other collection companies like vultures are going to see that you're active now, you're back alive.
They're all over you.
They're going to jump back on you. Yeah, exactly. So you got to make these decisions on creating a customized approach based on your file, because everyone's situation, file, money situation, goals are different. So really taking that information and, hey, before you make a move, let's kind of get a feel for, is it the right move? Not about should you pay your collection or not. It's about, let's make sure that the information's reporting accurately. Let's verify it. Let's make that game plan together here to really see if you're not shaking the trees a little too much and all this stuff starts jumping on your credit. You got 4 or 5 new collections on your credit within the next 60 days because you went and paid off a $40 one, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about what needs to be done, proactive steps after the break here. This is the weekly credit report, Twin Cities News Talk. You want to go to the weeklycreditreport.com. You can go into UnitedCreditConsultants.com if you want to reach out and contact us directly today. Or like I always do, give us a call directly. We have coordinators in-house, 800-455-4100. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the weekly credit report, Twin Cities News Talk, game 1130. We're live this morning in studio. I'm your host, Joe McGlynn, president of United Credit Consultants. Like I mentioned, this is the weekly credit report. Every week we are live Saturdays, 8 to 9 a.m. Your weekly source for credit repair, credit concerns, education, credit topics, all that good stuff. Just really the understanding breakdown of what's new, what's the latest and greatest on credit. We talk a little bit about mortgages. We talk a little bit of everything. When it comes to credit, that's the nice thing about credit is it is very broad, it's vast, and it affects you not only more than ever, but it's growing when it comes to the importance of credit and how it's affecting your day-to-day savings, money, everything. So it is a very important show. Every week is important, I feel. And we are growing like a weed here at United Credit Consultants. Every week we are expanding. We are actually moving offices here in the next couple months because of the growth and the importance of credit and the vast knowledge. I mean, the knowledge that these guys have here, my team, and the training that they've gone through is very extensive. It is very hard to break the door here and getting in there and just because it's so important. There's so many levels. There's so much information out there when it comes to credit, advising tactics, rebuilding tactics. There's so many levels that these guys go through pretty extensive training when it comes to being certified with FICO, NACSO, all that stuff. And actually, I would like to say they're Joe McGlynn certified. So going through that, this show here is brought to you by the segment here is brought to you by United Credit Consultants, Minnesota's largest, most preferred credit repair, credit restoration company. We are proudly endorsed by Glenn Beck. Let us help you get your credit report and score back on track. UCC has offered and it has proven investigation and challenging tactics. We haven't talked about that today. To remove unverifiable and inaccurate accounts off your credit report in as little as 30 days. And if you didn't know that can be done, 100% it can be done. It happens every day at our office. We remove thousands of accounts off people's reports every week, being that they're unverifiable, inaccurate. These companies cannot answer them. These companies don't have the information to verify and validate the validity of the given information that is questioned and challenged. Understand that. Nothing on your report is in stone, okay? If you've been turned down for anything in the past 12 months, there's something that's going on that needs your help, that you need to be proactive. Let's take that next step. Pick the phone up, give us a call, or even give us a call here at the studio. I'd love to hear your story. 651-989-5855. Obviously, there's so much more. There really is.
Yep.
I mean, give us a call. One of our trained advisors today. We have coordinators in the studio, 800-455-4100. That's 800-455-4100. We offer free consultation, so it's really no risk to at least stick your nose in and see what's going on when it comes to, hey, what's going on in your credit? And then you make a decision on what can be done or what needs to be done based on your situation and your file. Make decisions on education, not on emotion or turning your back to it, right? So let's get back right into it. I know we don't have too much time. We have a little time here, but it goes quick, doesn't it? God. Talk about wholesale. You know, right now at this point, that debt is in the hands of a wholesale. Now, the crazy part is, or I shouldn't say crazy, I should say the surprising part is that these wholesale debts still, for different reasons, only own debt for a given period. They don't own it forever. And that's another, misconception. A lot of people think, well, now they own it forever. No, they don't. If you got unpaid collections, if you're listening, which 1 out of 3 people that are listening has issues because they say 1 out of 3 Americans right now has a credit score below 620, okay? You haven't paid that debt. Well, they bought the debt. They've been calling you, which means they have employees that they're paying per hour. They got phone systems. They have computer systems. They have, insurance. They have payroll. They have buildings, that cost money, right? So taking that information and taking that into account, they're not going to sit there and lose money. So it gets to a point where, again, 3 to 4 months, these companies, if they can't get a hold of you, I don't care if it's a $20 collection. I don't care if it's a $20,000 collection. Regardless of the amount of money you owe, if you don't pay them a penny,
they're going to move on.
They're going to move on because it gets to a point where it's like, look, I don't care if you owe us $500,000. If I can't get a hold of you, we're losing money here. We're beating a dead horse because it's getting to a point where we got employees that are calling, writing letters, and stamps, envelopes, paper, ink, all that stuff. It all adds up when you're talking thousands of clients in a given bundle that they buy, right? So unfortunately, it's a lot like a third party in a way that they can report, but they only own the debt for a given time. So what happens is over time is that these companies, when it comes to your credit report, not knowing better, is the company will report it on your credit. And then when 3 to 4 months go by and they can't get a hold of you, they got the wrong number, that you moved and they don't have your address, they will sell that debt in bundle to another collection firm or company. Problem is that they don't go back and tell the bureaus any different. And the thing is, the simplistic understanding of credit and what my advisors do a great job of is they educate you in the first 20 minutes of the consultation of just understanding the background, the history of the bureaus, and just knowing just a little fundamental base of just the topic and the process. Understand that the credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, they're independently owned and operated. So they naturally do not, or their motivation isn't to look into your credit for you. Their job isn't to babysit your credit. Their job isn't to call these companies every 6 months or every year and make sure the stuff is accurate, up to date, correct, valid. They don't do those things. So over time, things are added on your credit, and when they sell that debt in the future, they don't go back and tell the bureaus any different. And remember, if the bureaus aren't doing anything, and if the creditor is not telling the bureaus anything, and if you're sitting on your hands a little bit in theory and not being proactive on being up to date with your credit, knowing your rights, knowing that there's actions that can be taken, knowing that there's things that can be done, proactively to clean it up, nothing is happening. And
except for your credit is dropping.
Or staying low.
Yep.
Right? Or inaccurate.
Yep.
And that's the problem, is that most people, I would say 90% of any client that I've ever sat with, if I asked them without saying a word to them, without knowing anything about, first 2 minutes of our conversation, I bet you most of them would tell you that the only way to clean credit is to rebuild it, is to open more. Right?
Open up more and make payments on time.
I got some old junk, I got some old collections there, but I talked to my buddy. He told me to go open a few credit cards and just keep the balances low and pay my bill, and everything should be fine. Naming one thing in life to adding more to something fixes it. There's nothing. Clean it up. Having those accounts open and going to do nothing but dilute your file, dilute the situation. Not taking care of the old inaccuracies is not going to fix the old inaccuracies. They're still there. That's your credit history. That's everything. Your credit's all about, when you pull credit, you're trying to get more of something. So the history of those negative debts is everything if that's all that's on your report.
And Joe, we see this all the time when we talk to people on the phone, and we will literally talk to them and they say, "Oh, I only have one or two bad things," because they think that at this moment in time, it's only the things that are still open that are
They
bad.
think it's the Macy's or the Quest, and that's it.
They don't take into account the old stuff that are closed off, and all of a sudden we do that soft pull and we sit down and do the consultation with them, and it's like there's not one or two things, there's 20 things, but they're all old, and they think that because they're closed off and they're not, that they just disappear or they're gone.
Yeah. That's, again, that's why we have the show.
Yep.
Truly. There's so many levels to this process. If you don't know, and every person has a different education level on the process, right? So what Ryan's going into, and I want to go into a little detail, it's great information, is when you pay off a debt, that doesn't mean that the item is then removed. If you pay a collection, know this, paying on a collection, unfortunately, negatively impacts your credit score. Paying on it will drop your score. Think about that. Paying on a public record, paying on a collection, paying on a charge-off will drop your overall FICO equation and score probability factor. Okay? And the reason is simple. You're putting new activity on your DOLA, which is your date of last activity. Okay? So know that. Okay, it's not about paying a collection. The companies don't know in detail that you wrote a check or you paid with pennies or you paid with a good faith and a shook hand and whatever. You traded in a cat, whatever. People think so detailed about this stuff. They think, well, don't they know that? No, they don't. The FICO system and the formula is all math. It's a computer.
Exactly. It's a mathematical algorithm.
It's when you do this plus this equals this. That's simple. Okay, so when you put new activity in a negative debt, it will drop your overall scoring equation. Okay, it'll drop your formula because you have a new debt that now has brand new activity where this thing maybe hasn't been touched or updated for 2.5 years, right? And you chased it down, and I guarantee everyone that's listening in can understand what I'm about to explain here. It's, you call one collection company, they don't own it, and then they transfer you to the next one, and then transfer it because you're chasing down that ghost. And the thing is, most people, when they do these whole transfers, because the original reasoning was, I want to clean my credit. Well, if you ever think about this, you ever get transferred one time ever on the phone, your goal was to clean your credit. Maybe you should take a step back and think, well, if I'm going to be transferred, that means that the company that just transferred me doesn't own the debt anymore, which means if I investigate the validity of this given account on my credit report, how are they going to then verify the validity of the item if they don't own the debt? They're not going to be able to. That's the whole point. Okay, it's not about you didn't owe it. I'm not saying don't pay your debt. I'm saying make sure the information on your card is valid. Now, if we remove the item off your credit report, then you want to chase it down and pay it. Hey, by all means, that's your debt. It's your money. It's your deal. But what I'm trying to get at is our job here, Ryan's job, Jared's job, my job, our whole team's job here is to focus on what your goals are. That's why we ask you right when you call, what's your motivation? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish here? So by getting that information and knowing that information, we're going to be able to educate and advise you specifically then on what steps should be taken on and what needs to be done correctly based on your goals, right?
To get you closer to your goals instead of making the wrong steps to get you further away.
100%.
Well, that's the whole point of what we do is to sit down. We're here to improve your scores, clean up your credit profile. We know to educate you that there's options. If you are in a collection scenario, if you are in a judgment scenario, there are options to not only save you money, but to clean up your credit profile, to hit your goals, to get to where you're wanting to go.
And bottom line, we know the right steps to take to get you closer to your goals instead of further away.
And the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about money.
Yep.
And the truth is, at the end of the day, it's all about getting you in position to save money. Let's get your file on track to where I don't ask you what's your auto loan payment. It's about what's your interest? How much money are you saving? Give us a call. We'd love to help. We'd love to get you on track. Springtime here. 800-455-4100. 800-455-4100. This was the Weekly Credit Report. Twin Cities News Talk Game 1130. Go to our website, UnitedCreditConsultants.com. Thanks again, guys. Go Cuse. Have a great weekend. See you next Saturday.
See you later.